All right. So, welcome everyone. My name is Jim Burke from Make Magazine, and this is our Hangout on Air. I also have our special guest, Caleb, over. Where are you, Caleb? You at home right now?
I am at home in southern Missouri.
Southern Missouri. It's nice and hot down there, humid.
It is humid. It's been raining a lot, and we got temperatures in the 80s and almost getting to the 90s, so it's like walking through a swamp when you go outside.
Well, thankfully, it's not very swampy down in D.C., where we have some fantastic things going on with the first ever White House Maker Faire, which, by the way, takes place on a declared day of making, a national day of making. So, yeah, a lot of stuff happened today, Caleb. I noticed on Facebook there was quite a few posts coming out from all over, a bunch of makers. Obviously, one of my all-time favorites, wonderful DJ Giraffe, made its way out there, which is fantastic, especially knowing its size and the
Yep, the
fact that it
giraffe is there.
came from the West Coast all the way. That's incredible.
Yep, Russell the giraffe made it and got to uh, metaphorically shake the president's hand. I think he got a pat on the snout.
Yeah,
Uh, he made it, and he had some.
yeah, it looked like Obama tickled him a bit, which is actually the best way to introduce yourself to an electronic giraffe, for those who are not aware. But yeah,
That's what
there's a
I've.
bunch of other makers. There were many, many other makers there who came far and wide very quickly too. I might add, there was some short notice, and it was wonderful how everyone in the community stepped up. Caleb, what were some of your highlights? Would you point out?
Oh man. Well, there's some interesting stuff that got taken and exhibited there. I gotta say, one of the ones that I find most interesting has got to be this solar roadways project, where somebody's talking about putting solar panels underneath the road. And I've heard arguments both ways on whether or not it's even feasible. But it's interesting that somebody can come up with such a crazy idea, build it in their garage, and then be shaking the president's hand because of it in a few, maybe a month or so is all this been out.
Yeah, and that also caught like wildfire on the social media networks. I saw that story rather quickly.
I think that one's so popular because so many people have an opinion on whether or not it would work.
Yeah, there was actually quite a bit of debate about that. And I think that's healthy to have that sort of discourse, especially for an idea that would be very tremendous to execute, but also have massive benefits for everyone involved. So, I think that's great. The fact that he was there in such short notice, and from, just concept to popularity to the White House. I mean, what more exciting thing could you possibly ask for?
I know it's got to be so quick for him. I can't imagine the kind of whirlwind that you would get swept up in. Now we also had at the event there were all kinds of officials, local mayors from Pennsylvania, Michigan, Tennessee, West Virginia, California, Florida, New York, Illinois, and I'm kind of curious to hear what. I'm hoping that we'll be able to hear what they took away from this event.
Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to the so-called media afterglow from it to get a good perspective on what kind of impact these kind of makers have with meeting with all these people in Washington and actually having that connection and being able to make something of it just as much as they've made something themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we've seen, a lot of businesses today rolling out some initiatives to do some pretty cool stuff. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that, but we could kind of go through some of these real quick that are kind of highlights. I know Intel and NASA were doing some cool stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, yeah. Let's see here.
Where
I'm
would you want to
trying to.
start? It's a big list.
It is. It's a ridiculously big list. So the first one that I can think of really is Indiegogo is doing a contest that launched at the White House Maker Faire, where they're getting people to kind of affiliate their projects with the maker movement for a chance to win some prizes from Autodesk and Amazon. It's not groundbreaking, but I really like the fact that even on a site like Indiegogo, they're still trying to encourage people to think about making, you know, aside from just marketing your product.
Yeah, which is absolutely essential. I've noticed that Indiegogo has really stepped up with that lately, in order to provide, because you when you're one of those organizations, you have to really focus on getting people to not just raise the money, but what happens afterwards. I mean, that's the big story with crowdfunding in the last 2 years is what happens when a project makes its goal. I mean, when this first started, we were all talking about whether or not you could crowdfund, but we're well past that now, and it's the real question is how do you get a group of people, amateur or not, to come up with an idea, come up with a product or a prototype, and then actually take it to production. And Indiegogo is definitely stepping up their game. We're making it much more easy and accessible, which means more people can come up with ideas, which means it benefits them all across the board.
Absolutely. And on the subject of crowdfunding, Kickstarter started a new initiative now that you can do. They have a special section specifically for raising money just to build makerspaces. And I think
Wow.
that is incredibly wonderful. I know that I will personally drop, a $5 bill into the bucket just to see a makerspace show up in another place. I think that's a really, really good initiative. That's almost altruistic.
Yeah, it's borderline altruistic. It's right on the edge. But yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic first step that everyone's making to open up the accessibility, making it so that any individual who has an idea can go out and do it and actually follow through. The first part of your golf swing, and then leading with the rest of your body, and so to speak, in this case, making sure that production happens, and getting more makerspaces is another big step in that too. Because as we know, both you and I know, and I'm sure people out there know, that makerspaces have helped start a lot of these organizations. They helped start certain good number of companies in the last 5 to 7 years, and they will continue to do so the more that there are.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who aren't members of makerspaces or haven't been to some of the larger makerspaces in big cities don't necessarily realize the huge advantage that you can derive from having a community of makers that are knowledgeable in different areas that are willing to share information. So, I mean, the things that we think of right now as being the huge news in the industry, like 3D printers and drones, so many of those big names that we see, like MakerBot, all came out of makerspaces, and they were created out of the collaborative effort of knowledgeable people who weren't even necessarily involved with the project directly.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing how, and what's really interesting, you pointed out, Caleb, you made a really good point. A lot of the people who are involved with starting hackerspaces and keeping them running, keeping the paying the bills and keeping the lights on, so to speak, are very aware that from their community they are contributing. But I wonder how many of them out there also understand that by connecting with other hackerspaces, that you can also create this network of what I like to call a network of creativity, which then leads to these kind of ideas. And before you know it, they're starting companies without even trying. It happens. It happens very organically. It happens very sudden. And it's what I would really like to know is in the next few years, Caleb, how do you think hackerspaces will form stronger bonds, or will they have to wait for like someone to come along to make that connection happen?
Really, what I think will happen in the makerspace and hackerspace area is that we'll see something similar happen to when the internet was created in the first place and communities stopped being defined by geographical location. So we'll start seeing, I think, more virtual makerspaces where people with similar interests or similar skill levels are connecting online more. If you look at something like the RepRap project, it started just as a 3D printing project, but really it's grown to such a massive community. And you see entire businesses kind of evolving and falling out of this community that's geographically spread across the planet, but more refined in its scope and focus on the internet. You know, we have people like Joseph Prusa creating a nozzle in, where is he, Czechoslovakia, and then people doing drivetrains and frames here in the States, and whole business just appear out of nowhere. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think we'll see a little bit more of that happening and businesses being created that way.
Yeah, and it's going to be really exciting in the next couple of years when we see what happens to a hackerspace. For those of you who've been around for it, if you participated in a hackerspace, you might have noticed in the last few years that the communities themselves have become, with lack of better words, more legit. There is better organization. There's more tools. There's more access. They are expanding their memberships to numbers that were previously, you know, pies in the sky dreams. I mean, I can think of several hackerspaces in the United States alone that have well over 200 members and counting and growing, even with full paid memberships. And the tools that you can acquire through that and other sponsorships through their community, you're able to walk in as a community member, have access to a plasma cutter or, you know, a 5-axis CNC mill. And I can only imagine what kind of world that will create with enough people behind it.
That is a very good observation, and it doesn't only apply to hackerspaces getting larger. It also applies, I think, what you were saying, to people taking them more seriously. I mean, you know, 5 years ago, if you told somebody you were going to a hackerspace or a makerspace, they'd ask you, "What's that? You know, what are hackers doing here?" And here in the Midwest, where I am, and the population isn't as large, we may have a makerspace that only has 5 or 6 people. But without collective effort to be able to share tools and to join those online communities, you know, we're able to be taken a little bit more seriously. We actually have been able to get local news to pay attention to us on a few occasions, whereas a few years ago, you wouldn't have seen that happening. It really is nationwide becoming a more legitimate thing to be a maker.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just the legitimacy, not just from individuals, but from the community at large. I can only imagine what world that will bring tomorrow. One of the things I noticed with Obama's speech earlier today as he opened the Maker Faire White House was the emphasis on this called Renaissance in American manufacturing, which I think is something that people, at least generations older than us, would absolutely love to hear more about. Like, love the idea that people in our age range are discovering and rediscovering these wonderful things and applying a new method of manufacturing on smaller scales, on community levels, that could possibly transform the nation. Now, what do you think? What do you think kind of scale is achievable through that? Like, what would be your best guess?
As far as the scale, you know, that's a tough one to guess at because there's so many right now. Everything tends to be in fairly niche areas like 3D printing and home manufacturing. Everybody's trying to push the limits on new technology. We're not seeing a lot of people. Well, I guess CNC mills are old technology, but other than that, we're not seeing too many people returning to artisan craftsmanship. We're seeing people leaning more towards pushing the envelope on rapid prototyping and things like that. So, I mean, I could see us getting more power in terms of manufacturing here in the States, but honestly, my personal opinion is that individual households having the knowledge to make and fix things is of more importance than maybe our nationwide ability to manufacture plastic parts. You know, people say, what is this whole maker movement thing? My grandparents knew how to make stuff and fix stuff. And I say, yeah, you know, your grandparents knew how to fix the lawnmower. Do you? Your grandparents knew how to put in a new fence. Do you? And they say, well, no, I don't. Exactly. So we're trying to return to kind of that self-sufficient culture where we can make our own things and fix our own things and place value in the things that we have made.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's a slight extension of that personal social change that you're talking about. Whereas we're collectively learning new skills, we have better access to learning those new skills, and on top of it all, by having an entire generation of people or a society of people who are aware of that, I mean the possible beneficial effects that come out of it is, well, imagine not having to throw away everything just because it's broken. Or imagine that times 10 million people, times 100 million people, and so on. And what that can say for how products become available, how they're made. Or as you mentioned earlier, one thing I've noticed that, yes, while we have not much change with older trades in that, the commerce on those manufacturing, those one-offs, those artistic procedures are much better now because of the internet. We're in a world where we can make anything, put it up for sale on the internet. We can raise money to make a certain number, and I think that's what is the nice game changer about it. Because for a generation of people who are sourcing for better ways of income, that self-actualization that comes from making on your own and then making that life better yourself is tremendous. And I think that's kind of the message that we're getting from the White House, that they recognize both the nationwide benefit of making, but they also recognize the community and personal benefits. And that's what I've gathered from the White House Maker Faire today.
You know, that's a really good point about the market for artisan products being bigger. I guess I hadn't thought about it, but that is a really good point. And to that point, even at the White House today, they announced that Etsy has an educational program out there to teach people to do some artisan crafts so that they can support themselves selling them. That's really a good observation. I hadn't thought about that. Um, so yeah, I guess even artisanal skills are making a huge comeback, which makes me happy. So tell me, James, I see you're standing in the Make Labs right now. You've got to be surrounded by some cool stuff. So
Yeah.
what's been the favorite thing you've seen them make this year in the Make Labs?
Well, yes, as you can see, I am standing here at Make Labs, and it is actually quite busy right now. We have some people here. We have some makers here. We also have some people who have been working with the Make Labs all year round and have been putting together some really cool things. I'm going to see if I can find somebody we could talk to, who's right next to me right now and grinning. Uh, why don't you tell the wonderful people out there, what have you been making in the Make Labs today?
Let's see. We have Make Labs munitions and Make Labs security.
Make some room for that. That's the other thing we're making right now, is extra room. Explain this contraption to those who only can see a quarter of it.
So this, it's hard to see, is our Nerf Sentry turret, and when it's done, it'll have an autonomous nature and seek out specific faces or targets.
Like my face,
Like his
which
face.
should be shot with Nerf all the time.
Yeah, and we'll be documenting this on the. Well, you and a couple of her. I have a list.
There's a short list.
There's a very short list.
Oh, am I at the top of that list?
No, 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 no.
Oh, I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind. I think it's a good wake up call to be told by your coworkers, yeah, we need to shoot you in the face with a Nerf more often. I think you're a little too rambunctious around the office. So, what else have you made?
Oh, I did the Power Wheels with you.
Oh,
That
was a good run.
was a good run until we destroyed it. Um, GoPro cannon.
Yeah, give us a rundown of that GoPro cannon, which was featured in our last issue. Not the current upcoming one, the previous one, which was number 38.
Canon cam in issue 40, right? Yeah.
Oh, it might have been.
Yeah.
I could have been totally wrong. Go ahead. You would know better at the time scale.
Front cover. And so it's designed to right there.
Right there.
It's designed to be fired out of a potato cannon with a 3-inch barrel, and it holds a GoPro camera right there. The fins retract. The nose code's spring-loaded, so it survives, and it's just a neat project to shoot out of your cannon.
Yeah, I mean, just the thought of having one of these cannons, I know that when I was younger, the first thing that came to my mind is, what could I possibly shoot out of this cannon that isn't a potato or better? And I wish I was younger.
I ask myself that every day.
You ask yourself every day that this existed, and now it's here.
No, what could I shoot out of my cannon?
Oh, well, yes. Which, I really love this project, and also if you check on the website or if you are subscribed, you will on our iPad app you will see the video of this, which I have to say is absolutely cool. Probably one of the coolest things, because once you recognize that not only is a GoPro in this piece of plastic, which is very solid, I might add. I mean, this may look. If you're used to 3D printed objects, you might notice that depending on the build area and that, the strength might be a little bit iffy, but this is very strong and incredibly hefty. And yet, it was getting some good distance on it. Do you happen to know what the distance you achieved with this?
With our air cannon, we were getting about football length, and then with our propane-powered one, we were getting about 2 football lengths.
So yeah, 600 yards. There you go. 600 feet. Oh yeah, 100 yards, 600. Guess who doesn't watch much football? Come on, go ahead and guess. Oh, and it looks like we have an. Thank you very much, Dan, on showing that. You can check that out in issue 40. Is there a way we can get that displayed up here? Because I would. Yeah, holding it up would be great. Why don't you come over here, Riley? Get your name correct?
Hi, I'm Riley, and this is a robot that I built out of some Roomba motors, and I hacked my sister's remote control car and put the steering mechanism down here.
You said you hacked your sister's remote control car. How did she feel about that?
I actually paid $10 for the remote control car.
So you planned ahead for that. You were ready. You eyed that toy car, and you're like, I know I can get this away from her. So, tell us why were you inspired to make this cardboard contraption?
For this meeting, actually.
Oh. How long did it take to build?
2 days about.
2 days. Yeah, that's nice. That's actually it's more than I can do in 2 days. That's certainly more I can do in 2 days. That's using can you show the Roomba parts right there, the wheels itself? No, it might be a little bit harder for you guys to see out there, but it's actually very cleverly done in a very actually it's really impressive. In 2 days to build this, to get it all together. And it actually moves fairly. Like I'm surprised at its agility. It seems to be very agile.
A bigger circuit board for display in the front.
Yeah. What's the not real but for display circuit board on front? Tell us how you decided on that design.
I wanted some art on it, so I decided to put this control circuit board from a oscilloscope on there.
Oh, it's from your oscilloscope. So I'm guessing you had an oscilloscope.
Yes, it was given to me and it was not working. So.
Was it beyond repair?
There was some sparking coming from it.
Yeah, sparking would be definitely looked down upon. But I mean, you've definitely put great use to that, and it actually looks very pretty. I'm not sure if you can see it there, yes, but if there was a circuit board to put on display, I would put that one up there. It's very nice and clean. And it gives a nice, almost pseudo-retro look to this robot, with frizzy red hair, to modernize it. I think almost matches Paloma's hair back there. It's actually the same hair. It just this one was like electrocuted or something. No, it was actually made of wire, right? Is that wire?
Yep.
Well, Riley, that is excellent, wonderful robot there. We have something else over here to show off. I would love to see what that red box is. We have a surprise box. I'm not sure what the surprise is. Actually, I don't know what this is, so.
So this is my little spinny drawing thing that I built out of a fan from my mom's computer. And
Let's see how we can like make this both displayable and. So there's a spinning action right there. I know it's kind of blending into the camera because of the frame rate. So it looks like we're putting a marker down. Getting a few more colors here. So it looks like he's got a box here with an old computer fan.
And when you put a marker on it, it just paints it on the whole image, unless the plate is uneven, like this one is, and it comes out than you expect.
So it creates an impression, and based on the corrugation of the cardboard, you were able to create this kind of randomized image from it.
Yep.
How did you get this idea?
I was in my room with my mom's computer and a screwdriver and a switch from Radio Shack.
Was this a computer that she no longer wanted?
Yep.
Okay. It's good to clarify these things for those out there, just in case you know. These are things that were wanted to be repurposed. Wouldn't encourage anyone to repurpose things without asking, of course. But I'm glad you went ahead and did that. It's definitely better than what I would have done at any age, really. But yeah, let's take a look inside.
This project is the only one I brought here that you can look inside.
Here, if you lift it up. Yeah, show it here and then go ahead and talk right into the mic there.
So inside there's a switch from Radio Shack, a few alligator clips, and the bottom of the computer fan, and a 9-volt battery and a spare 9-volt battery.
What's the spare for?
Just in case the battery runs out.
Oh, okay. That's the perfectly good reason for a spare. Love the switch you have right there. It's a nice little glowing switch. Was that part of your parts bin, or did you just happen to see it?
I bought it from Radio Shack. I think it was $3.
Nice. Well, there you go. If you were looking for a nice switch, it's got a nice color action to it. If you're looking for a colorful switch, that's a good one to do it. So Riley, let's get a little bit of background. What sort of here? If you want to stand right here, we can get a better shot of you. What kind of other projects do you do? What inspires you to make?
Parts laying around and books.
Lots of books. What's some of your favorite books?
Make Electronics by Charles Platt. And what else? His second Make Electronics book that I got at the Maker Faire.
Oh. So a lot of electronics books that you use for your inspiration. So do you build projects from that, or do you come up with your own projects afterwards, or?
Yeah, just read it and see what I can come up with the components laying around the garage.
Oh, well, that's absolutely wonderful. That's actually a really good thing, really good attitude to work about it. It's kind of like when I was younger, I'd have Legos. You know, you get the box and then you put it together, and then like 10 minutes later, you're like, all right, what else can I make? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the wonderful thing about making is that you can go out there, start a project, finish it, and when you're done, you have all these parts that you can use, or you can scrounge around and find more stuff to build from. What part of making do you like most?
Putting it together a little more than the end project.
A little bit more than the end. Now, how do you feel when projects get really difficult? When you run into a wall?
Frustrated and feeling like trying to figure out what the problem is.
And how do you feel when you overcome those things?
Great.
Yeah, that's the best. For me, when I was younger, that was my favorite part of projects too. It was never building up to it. It was that moment when you have the aha moment. You know, that's really great. What is So Riley, I'm really glad that you came down here and showed off your cardboard robot and your drawing machine. Riley, do you have anything on? Do you have a website by chance? Do you have a blog yet? Oh, you should. I would love to see these projects put online, and if so, you can send us pictures and video, and maybe we can have a write-up or something for it online. We'll take a look at it. But thank you so much, Riley, for coming by, and I'm really glad that you brought the robot, because that's cool. I love the hair. Love how it looks. Great aesthetic choice with having the board at the front, nice and viewable. Caleb, what do you think about that? What's
That
your
robot looked incredible. The hair looked fantastic. And you know all that taping the motors on the bottom reminds me a lot of some of the projects that I did as a younger person. And now I've got the money and tools to fasten things on a little bit better. But most of the time I probably use tape now. Still,
tape can take
great
you
job.
far. It can take you very
Yes.
far. All right. Well, thank you so much, Riley. I hope you enjoy talking with everyone else out there. Caleb, how you feeling right now? What is your feeling from some more of the things going on today?
I'm feeling really good. This whole White House thing just really made me feel kind of excited about our future, excited about the whole maker movement, and it started me wondering kind of how we can hold on to this. And one great way that I think we can hold on to this is this initiative that Google is doing with us called Maker Camp, Maker Summer Camp. It's starting here in July. I have the dates here. July 7th to August 15th. But the Google Camp is actually a free online thing where people can come, kids can come, and learn how to do some of these projects like what Riley was doing. I always hear kids talking about, I don't know how to do that. Nobody showed me how to do that. Nobody showed me how to make a robot. How am I supposed to do that? And so I think joining up with Maker Camp, which is completely free, again, is an easy way for people to get kind of exposure and see how these things come together and see how easy it really can be. What about you? What are you seeing going on that's exciting you?
Well, exciting here, or just in the White House in general?
About this whole thing that's happening today, about the proclamation of making, or any of the coverage today.
Yeah. Oh, first of all, really glad you pointed out Maker Camp, which is, by the way, July 7th to August 15th. So if you would want to check that out, go to makercamp.com. We got a lot of great editors here who will be helping with alongside with everyone learning, and it's a camp that you can go online for. What a better time to do that, because everything's on the internet now. And if you disagree, you're probably not listening to me because I'm online. One of the things I'm super stoked about is with the White House, there always comes with, regardless of politics, regardless of what people think about who's in office when or what year, the White House offers a level of legitimacy to those who are outside of any movement. It is basically a point of authority saying, this is important and this is something we should talk about, something that we should focus on, and something that we should support in our nation. And I feel like that's the wonderful rising crescendo of the whole thing, is that having a Maker Faire at the White House means, all right, anyone who's not heard of a Maker Faire will now know about a Maker Faire, because this is, for me at least, this is the sort of movement that can help transform a culture and can help educate people who many years ago would not have that accessibility or the ability to learn, but thanks to modern technology and more information out there, it's possible. So I think that's the real big take home for me. I really do believe that we're in a shift where this is becoming more and more, as I would say, legit, in the sense that there are people who are now going to look at this from the outside and start taking it very seriously.
That's great. And I've noticed more and more that people aren't surprised when they hear that you make something. It used to be that people would hear that you actually make something and they would act with shock, or they would think it was strange. But now it's almost to the point where, as you introduce yourself to people, you can just say, "What do you make?" and expect to get a serious answer. It's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also this emphasis on, it's no longer, oh, you make stuff. It's like, oh, well, what do you make? What do you do? Like, now we're getting into more finite questions as this evolves. As this involves more people, involves more of those around who never would have picked up a soldering iron before, who never would have thought that they could create a work of art, and who never would open up their laptop and realize that, oh, there are things I can do. I can upgrade this. I can fix this. I now understand things a bit better, instead of looking at the black mirrors in their lives and seeing something that they can't touch or access, and to them it's magic. Well, we're pulling the curtains off of everything and allowing people to see a new world because of it. So I think that's the fun part about it, really. So I'm getting a note here that we're going to be taking a short break, and then we'll be coming back with a few more interviews once we pull a few people away from the pizza, because there's a few slices floating around right now, and see if we can get a few more interviews and find out other stuff. And also, a little bit later, we will be discussing not just some of the projects that were at the White House Maker Faire, but some of the impending news from the White House Maker Faire that has been rising up. There's been quite a few stories coming out of it. I think Caleb and I will be able to cover both bases on that. Until then, though, we'll be back in about 5 or 10 minutes, I believe, and we'll get you some more makers. And actually, that's great for me. I know, Caleb, you're stuck in your room right now, but I could definitely get a slice of pizza right now. I've been eyeing it, so haven't had dinner yet. So we will be back shortly. All right, so I will find some more makers, and we'll be right back.
We can see them all gathering around in the Make Labs there, eating some pizza. If you can spot the pieces, there's a collection of 3D printers to check out. I've visited. It's pretty cool there. Pretty cool. All the things you've seen in the magazines, the stuffed animals to the rocket launchers and Tesla coils, they're all sitting around there. It's incredible. It's like a toy store whenever you walk in. And these people are working around it every single day. They get so used to it. It's pretty funny. Let's see here.
And we're back. Hi, I'm Jim from Make Magazine, and we are here at the live at the Make Labs right now, celebrating our National Day of Making. And I'm here with Caleb, who is an editor at Make, a community editor at Make.
Hi, guys.
How's it going? Today we are going to be recapping. Quite a few things, covering from the White House Maker Faire, some of the wonderful events that happened at the White House Maker Faire, and if there's a couple people out there who want to show us some projects, we'll be able to do that too. If you weren't here earlier, we'll catch you back up to speed. Caleb, why don't we go down some of the things that we saw at the White House Maker Faire today?
Well, at the White House Maker Faire, there were a few exhibits that we've seen before in the past. I think there was Open ROV, the open source underwater vehicle that's going around, and of course we saw the iconic giant mechanical lit up giraffe Russell. Pictures of Barack Obama tickling President Barack Obama tickling Russell. But aside from the exhibits that we saw at the White House today, some of the more important stuff was the announcements that were made at the White House. We've only covered a little bit of that news because there's just so much going on. For example, one of the things we haven't talked about yet is that DARPA is giving away $12.5 million this year to encourage makers to think of new ways to make robots. That's incredible, and it's just getting overshadowed because we have so much other incredible stuff going on.
Wow, yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that. I actually haven't read about that yet. That's an amazing amount of money to give out for robot development.
It is. It's actually part of their program called Mentor 2, and what a lot of that money is going to really is educational material to teach people how to handle the kind of equipment, to teach people how to do the programming, to teach people how to repair. So it's not necessarily going to be $12.5 million in awards, but still, $12.5 million is a lot of money to invest in encouraging people to make robots. I think we can all agree the world needs more robots.
Yeah, absolutely. That you are preaching to the choir here. I don't think there's anyone listening who would disagree. So we also have a few other. Go ahead.
Some of the other news that's happening is the Smithsonian is launching a whole new making initiative. They're trying to show off kind of how making has been done through history, which kind of harkens back to our conversation earlier about how, making isn't a new thing, but maybe we lost a little bit of focus for a while whenever we started mass manufacturing things, Now we're getting back to that making, and the Smithsonian wants in. That's a pretty big name to be paying attention to the maker movement.
Caleb, yeah, you got it right on the head there. A lot of big names today. I think that's one of the big take-home messages from today's White House Maker Faire. Not only the many projects that attended, but also the collaboration with these people who, up to this point, have not interacted with the maker community this directly, which I think is incredibly exciting. I think we've reached a new level of maker community outreach with this White House Maker Faire, and I think we have finally reached a national level of exposure about it.
Absolutely. Um, it's even popping up in places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. One of the ones that caught me by surprise was the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Typically, we think of that as like farming and tractors and stuff like that. But they're actually starting a nationwide thing with 4-H, with the National 4-H Council. It's putting 27,000 students in rural areas in positions to learn about making. They're launching mobile maker spaces, doing after-school programs. You know, they're really pushing it to be something that everybody does everywhere. And this is the Department of Agriculture. I mean, it's making is really kind of reaching into every aspect of our lives at this point. Again, that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, we are all very aware of the STEM and STEAM educational outreaches, and I feel like with today, there is going to be a much more solid pinpoint, almost laser precision to the focus that we can see from our government to add more educational initiatives to help schools teach everyone. And I think that the impact of today will be felt for many, many years later. So I'm very excited to see it slowly but surely move past the initial stages that we've all been a part of.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just the government. We're seeing this like spreading into pop culture. You know, Will I Am. You know, the music artist Will I Am from the Black Eyed Peas.
Yep.
He's teamed up with Coca-Cola and 3D Systems to do a big thing with it, putting out like 1,500 3D printers to First Robotics teams. You know, the First Robotics tournaments that go on all over that teach people how to do robotics and stuff. It's a great program, actually. First Robotics is amazing. But what's also amazing is that we have these pop stars that are getting behind 3D printing to get them in the hands of these people doing robotics. It's incredible. We're going from music videos to robots in our schools. It's really, really wild.
Yeah, I remember the first time I've seen a music video that had any maker aspect. I believe it was a concert where Bjork had a Tesla coil on stage, and I couldn't help but imagine that she saw Architect at some point, whether online or in person, I don't know, but it's definitely making a reach out there. You were speaking of the private sector definitely stepping up their game today. One of my favorite ongoing stories I like to talk about is Local Motors, which from Jay Rogers, who has basically wanted to have a new approach to car manufacturing in the United States with his company. The idea is that instead of buying a car that's completely assembled, what you do is that you put a down payment on a design that's community developed, community designed, and then you build it with a community. And basically, the car that you end up owning is a car that you helped assemble at one of their factories, which I think is the coolest thing ever. I certainly will be getting one at some point, because the idea of owning a car that I know how it works and I help put it together fills me with so much more confidence than other manufacturers. Some of the other ones is we were mentioning Indiegogo earlier. I also noticed that there was a expansion with Tech Shop announcing for St. Louis and L.A. Caleb, you know anything about that?
You know, I don't know a lot about that, but I'm sorry to derail the subject. I want to go back to the cars for just a second.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Did you hear about what Tesla did?
Yeah,
The Tesla Motor Company decided that they were no longer going to pursue patents, patent infringement, I guess. They've released their patents to the world, even though they still own the patents. They've released them to the world to encourage other automakers to maybe take some of their ingenuitive ideas and implement them. And I think that's a wonderful move that is parallel along the lines of sharing the information like what Make loves to do so much.
Oh, absolutely. And Caleb, don't worry. You can interject with car talk as much as you want with me. I will never stop talking about cars. Yeah, Tesla Motors releasing those, not choosing not to pursue those patents would be. I mean, that's tremendous. I expect in the next 10 years that we're going to see a lot more electric automotive manufacturers coming up from it, and by all means, bring on the competition. I love that Elon Musk is basically saying, I'm not going to hide behind a patent. I'm going to open this up because I want competition. I know that I'll be a better company because of it. And I mean, that's exciting. I mean, Caleb, you want to start an electric car company? Because I don't see a problem with getting on board at this point.
That sure is tempting. The electric cars are pretty incredible. I got to ride in one of those Model S's. I didn't get to drive it. I wish I got to drive it. But just riding it was incredible. Those electric motors have so much torque that even with 4 full-grown men in one, it took off like a roller coaster. Now, of course, we don't necessarily want to put that in the marketing materials for our car if we want to hit the biggest market, but it surely can't hurt.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the power band and the torque range, absolutely fantastic. That car is a great competitor to the BMW 5 Series and the Audi S7. Like, I would not imagine buying a gas engine car at that point if I could get my hands on a Tesla for the same price. I mean, who cares about a Jaguar like X Series on that? I wouldn't. I would get a Tesla, and I'm sure other people feel the same way, especially with the cost of gas today. But unfortunately, we're talking a little too much about cars right now. But I do have another maker here who would love to not talk about cars, which I don't think is painful for me. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Evan Drake. Okay, you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, let's see what you got here for us today.
So I made an electromagnet using a microwave oven transformer that I cut the bottom off and took out the secondary. I'm going to hook that up to a weed whacker battery through a switch. So there's the mic. And I have here a iron block. It's about 25 pounds, pretty hefty. So I'm just going to pick it up with the... All right, sure.
We're going to get this electromagnet up a little bit more viewable for you guys out there. So it's not just me enjoying this.
And there we go.
There you go.
So,
homemade electromagnet. That is fantastic.
thank you. Yeah.
I would love. So where do you start for wanting to have a homemade electromagnet?
Well, I started with a microwave. I took it apart. I grabbed out all the important pieces that I enjoy, and I grabbed the transformer in there, which takes the just 120 volts AC and turns it into. For this one, it was about 2 kilovolts. And I ripped off the bottom. There's just 2 welds on either side. Pull off the bottom, and then just take out the secondary, which has the probably thousands of windings on there. And then I just hooked it up in series with the switch and the weed whacker battery, and I built the little wooden container just to be functional.
You might want to pick that up and point it out as you're talking about it.
Sure, you're right. So here's the transformer. Here's the coil right here. I've got this is a little bar to keep the battery in here in case I need to flip it upside down and stick it to the ceiling. But basically, it's just a platform.
Is that a drill battery there?
It's a weed whacker battery.
Oh, weed whacker battery. Sorry, go on.
No, that's all right. And so just flush bottom the 3. It's an E-core, so it's got the 3 kind of the prongs in front. And then I put a little block of wood through there that I carved out with a jigsaw to hold it in place. Glued it all together. Took a jigsaw and cut out the handles, then routed them so I could grip onto them. And that's about it.
Sweet. So what inspired this? What had you say, I want to make my own electromagnet?
Well, I've been messing around with microwave oven transformers for probably a year now, just because you can do so many different things with them. But maybe 3 months ago, I hooked it up to just the electromagnet aspect of it to house 120 volts AC, and it wasn't very powerful because half the time it's basically off. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try hooking it up to DC, and I did. I saw a thing online about using them as magnets, which was the first time I considered using them like that. But I hooked it up to that, and a lot more powerful than I expected. So I put it in the enclosure, and I joined it ever since.
Now, you said earlier that there's a lot of things you can do with. Why don't you explain some of the other things you can do with microwave? What was it?
Sure. Yeah. One thing that I did, I think it was my first project with a microwave oven transformer, was I hooked up a single coil as the secondary. So it gave me only a few volts, but a lot of amperage, so I could spot weld and melt screws. So I would have the two outputs, and I would put a screw across them, and the screw would burst into flames and melt. And I had a lot of fun with that.
As you would in any situation when sparks appear out of nowhere.
Yeah, and well, speaking of sparks, the other thing you can do with it is just use it as it's built, uh, with the massive amount of voltage that comes out of it into the microwave that they use that. You can hook it up so that you get really big arcs of electricity.
About how big?
Uh, I've got it probably about that far away with a peak like that. Yeah, it's fun.
That's pretty intense.
It is intense. It is. Whenever my friends come over and they want to know what I've been doing, I always show them that because it's the most interesting thing.
I have to imagine you have pretty neat parties.
Yes, very much so. Because I have so many parties.
I would bet. Now, do you have anything online to show any of your process, or you have a website, or?
I don't have a website. I made probably one Instructable a while ago. Wasn't very good. But I'm planning on doing a few more Instructables with one of my friends who's also into this stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That would be really great. Also because I'm sure other people would want to try this out. Hopefully not too excitable, but at the same time, I think that this is pretty cool to have. And I don't know if that was the original purpose for it, but in my head, I'm like, oh, that's just cool. That's why you have it, right?
Yeah. There's no intention but for it to be cool.
That's what I like about around here. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming by, and thank you for showing us your electromagnet. All right, Caleb. So yeah, electromagnet from a microwave transformer.
That looked
How do
really
you feel
impressive.
about that?
That looked really
It was his handle. I wish you could see it a bit better. It had a good grip to it. It was very nice. It was very well done on that. Caleb, are there any parting words you want to have for today after our incredibly awesome Maker Faire Day at the White House? What would be the cherry on top that you would like to impart to everyone out there?
I really think it boils down to the fact that now it's cool to be a maker. Like, there's just no way to get around it. It's cool to be a maker. It's officially cool to be a maker.
Awesome. I mean, hey, yeah. Actually, I was gonna think, yeah. No, you said pretty much what I. You out there. I'm glad. National Day of Making at our Make Labs all the way out here. I want to thank everyone else involved. Thanks to Caleb for taking the time to give us his imparting words, his wonderful words there. And everyone else out there, I hope you enjoyed what we were putting out there. And most importantly, I hope you leave with a little bit more inspiration to make something else. And if you have already made something else, feel free to get a hold of us. Tell us about your projects. Share your projects online. Head over to makezine.com. If you want to check out Maker Camp, go to makercamp.com and read up more about that. It's coming up this July 7th for 6 weeks. It's going to be awesome. And anything else out there, I'd say happy making then. Take care, everybody. Thank you. Yeah. I feel like I got some notes for myself for later on the couple tips and whatnot. Yeah. I think if I like write some fun stuff for the composer, it'll be a little bit smoother. Yeah, just put something like that together for and then just yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, that's a good idea. I want to do that. Cool. Well then, yeah. Let me know when you guys want to do another thing. I'd be more than happy to. Yeah, it's pretty easy. I just gotta make it smoother. Improve. That's all. Out of beverage. Good to know. Yes.